unless you could see through their brainwashing by the State Department. I'm sorry, my Democrat friends, you've been living in the Truman Show. Or, as some would consider, the Matrix. So, you have a choice, or maybe you don't. Maybe a friend of yours is forcing you to listen to this. But you're about to get the red pill, if you know what I mean.
And they say, even internally, at state, USAID does have cooperation with Burisma. It says pre-existing, small-scale, pre-existing cooperations. They're formally cooperating with Burisma in the region. They're noting that. And then if you go to the next screenshot, now this again is State Department email traffic that's been unearthed. Okay, so they're talking about doing co-branding with USAID and Burisma and the public-private partnership around USAID and Burisma. But then noting, quote, the very sticky wicket of the Hunter Biden connection on Burisma's board. And then they go on to say that, they want to create incentives for journalists to ensure responsible and unbiased coverage.
Very sticky wicket. What a weird way to phrase that in an official email.
Right. What they're saying is it would be a major scandal if everyone knew the extent of it. They know it looks unseemly. They don't want the media to report on the massive conflict of interest of Joe Biden going in and kicking out that prosecutor and conditioning USAID money on it while USAID is directly working with Burisma. But then the State Department, using its media mockingbird apparatus funded by your tax dollars, the swarm of NGOs, as reported publicly this week that 90% of Ukrainian media outlets are funded by the U.S. government. 90%.
90%.
By the USA Truman Show.
Wow.
Jesus Christ.
And so if they're funded by the State Department, guess what? There's a State Department grant coordinator. Guess what? If they want to keep getting there's going to need to be review and approval by USAID and by state, because often these are co-grants. And so they have the capacity to ensure that the incentives are aligned for the journalists to be responsible with the way they report on the USAID Burisma connection while Joe Biden is weaponizing USAID to protect Burisma. By the way, I should note, Hunter Biden's law firm actually pitched using Burisma as an instrument of statecraft to the State Department, because the more you capacity build Burisma, the more endogenous gas Ukraine is able to supply, and so that's less gas being exported into Europe from Gazprom and Russia. So they blend this. It advances U.S. national interests, but hey, it makes us rich along the way. So, it's the same reason Pfizer gets to keep all the profits, for, when there's a vaccine mandate, they don't, they say, well, we're just rewarding, we're doing such good work. Well, why aren't you, if this is a charity, why aren't you giving the money back to the American people, well, should we put some cap on this? And we're incentivizing this, pioneering approach, and we're uniquely in the position to do it.
And what's important about this is this explains for a lot of people that are very baffled by obvious propaganda and misinformation that's being propagated by the mainstream media. When you look at mainstream newspapers and television shows saying things that are just factually incorrect, and you could research it, it's not hard to find out, and you see them propagate this stuff. This is all the same sort of thing, but this is happening on U.S. soil.
Oh, exactly. Well, actually, Jamie, if you pull that receipt back up, there's a paragraph there we didn't read, but that's useful to this. And then there's another topic related to this that I think makes this point even harder. But look at that fourth paragraph there. This is from the U.S. State Department, which is in control of managing all of the media assets, those 90% of media assets in Ukraine and the ones that simultaneously operate here. I would offer that Burisma's incentive to support could plausibly read, the main objective of Burisma was to create incentives for journalists to offer sympathetic coverage.
Wow. Objective of Burisma. The main objective. It's an energy corporation.
Yes. Humanitarian aid. This is a for-profit company that's directly tied.
Such a wild statement. The main objective of Burisma was to create incentives for journalists to offer sympathetic coverage of the company on energy issues.
Yes.
Wow.
Right. They want to pitch it as a sort of patriotic, pro-Western.
They bought the media.
They bought the media. They bought the media.
And they bought the media here.
On that topic, can we talk about a related scandal and frankly monstrosity that the American people need to understand the full extent of its influence on American hearts and minds?
No, we can't talk about that.
Okay.
Open wide. Here comes the red pill.
Let's go on to the next thing then. No, okay. So, Jamie, if you go to X, I think probably the best thread on this currently published is the WikiLeaks thread on Internews, which just reading some of the statistics in that will help make sense of some of the clips and screenshots that I'm going to show you about its operations that impact domestic affairs and international governments that are allied with the State Department. So if you just look up, just type in the word Internews, one word, INTERNEWS, and you go to search that on the WikiLeaks profile, you'll see. Yeah, here you go. If you just top that top one, USAID has pushed nearly half the. So Internews, I've been talking about for a long time, but now the stage is sort of set to really show the extent of this. But what we do is we create these pretty little predicates, these pretty little lie words, weasel words, to hide from the American people and especially from foreign governments what we're really doing in the area. So we have a catchphrase at state and in statecraft, and it's called independent media. You can think of that as the State Department's word for good guy. Okay, doesn't mean independent. They are funded by us. They are not independent from the government. They literally submit their work and approval plans for their work plans for what they cover for review and approval to the U.S. State Department. They are dog walked the whole way. But we call them independent because they are said to be independent from foreign governments who influence. So basically, they're independent from the Chinese government or they're independent from the Russian government. So there's, just like with the word USAID itself that we talked about last time, it's your mind playing tricks on you. You're seeing aid, but it's Agency for International Development.
Right.
So nothing, but they do the same thing with independent media, which is that internally to them, it means it's a good guy for us because it's independent from our enemies. But when Americans see that, they think, well, independent, that means it's a free actor who's not being sponsored by any government. But under the banner of USAID's independent media and media sustainability branches, we fund $500 million a year to this network of, again, over 4,000 media outlets. It reaches 778 million people, 9,000 journalists trained. Remember last time we went over the Atlantic Council with 7 CIA directors and annual funding from USAID, as well as the State Department and Pentagon, how they were holding up I call BS placards and putting Trump tweets on screen to flag for disinformation. If you remember, we went over that. Well, this is what training journalists looks like. Is not only do they have the direct spawn of a media octopus under their direct sub-grantee group, but they then go out and train the journalists who work at all the other ones who aren't directly sponsored. So they reach everywhere. And you'll see here, for example, it makes reference to Gene Burgo, who is making $500,000 a year there. And if you go now, I'm going to show this domestic impact real quick, and then a couple of screenshots. So this has been going viral on X. I've been talking about USAID's role in the censorship industry forever. And if you just look up Internews and you just plug in the name, if you just copy paste that Gene Burgo phrase, you'll see this in the video section because it's everywhere now. So she made speeches for a long time, but this is a big one. Here we go, this one right here. Okay. So USAID-funded Internews CEO pushes for global advertising exclusion list to censor disinformation. This is a 28-second clip.
Like what they did to X.
Yeah, exactly.
Disinformation makes money, and that's one of the. We need to follow that money, and we need to work with and particularly the global advertising industry. That a lot of those dollars go to pretty bad content, and so you can work really hard on exclusion lists or inclusion lists to sort of really try to focus ad dollars and challenge the global advertising industry all around the world to focus their ad dollars towards the good news and information, the accurate and relevant news and information.
So this is USAID sponsoring both sides of this. she runs a $500 million mercenary media for hippies for hire empire, sponsored by USAID. USAID also gave $68 million to the World Economic Forum itself, and USAID's own internal documents show the explicit political targeting of these advertiser networks. And I can show you receipts on that if you just type in the word CEPS, CEPPS, and advertiser on my X timeline. And I don't mean to just go receipt to receipt to receipt. Actually,
No, it's okay.
Actually, before we get to that, just so I can close the loop on something that's a little bit more accessible and less political, Jamie, I texted you a screenshot of Internews in Brazil. And if one of them has at the top of it something called Rooted in Trust. If you keep scrolling up, there you go, that one. Yeah. Okay, so this is Internews with a worldwide media octopus sponsored $500 million a year, reaching 9,000 journalists, 5,000 media outlets. And here's what they were doing just on COVID censorship. So Rooted in Trust is a Internews program. It's a global pandemic information response program to counter the unprecedented scale and speed and spread of rumors and misinformation.
All which turned out to be true.
All of which turned out to be true. Our own CIA says that. Our own House Oversight Committee says that now.
Every
formally.
single step of the way. There's not one thing they said that turned out to be accurate. Not the death rate, not the ability to stop infections and transmissions, not the side effects, not the fact that natural immunity is far superior. Nothing. Not one thing. Not the lab leak theory. Nothing. Not even the funding of the research and the actual lab, which was also USAID, right?
Yes.
$50 million.
Right. From UC Davis to EcoHealth directly into, because I always say when it's too dirty for the CIA, you give it to USAID, and that's why you have all this pandemic stuff, and maybe we can get to that later. But I wanted to show the scale of this.
Do you need some water with that red pill? And don't forget, folks, Dr. Fauci got a preemptive blanket immunity that has never been given to anybody else on planet Earth before. So why are we still following his protocols and taking his genocidal shot? Oh, as Martin Luther King said, free at last, God damn it, take off that mask.